Growing up, prayer, God, and family has always been like a cornerstone in my life. However, there's one thing that I struggled with growing up in the faith. That was a catechism class. Maybe it was the content back then, but I always felt like, how does this apply to my life? How is this relevant to my life? And so I think what was important for me growing up was this idea of being true to what I believe in. If I really believed in the faith, then I want to know what this faith really is about. And I think that led me to try to search, try to find out more. And eventually that led me to Amplify Ministry and the Catholic Spirituality Center. And for the first time, I felt like, wow, scripture, it comes alive. It is something that I can really apply and use in my life to live in a very different way. I also came to interact with peers. I started to realize that their backgrounds were very different from mine. As I met peers who would speak to me and say that I do not know whether I want to go home tonight because the situation is not good at home, or some of them would say maybe I skip lunch, because I just have to save some money. I began asking myself, why is this happening? Like, why is there suffering like that? And why do I have the life that I have? It made me wonder, what purpose does God have for me? Eventually, I think that led me on to think about discernment, and not in a way of discerning priestly life, religious life, or married life, but really to discern, Lord, if you are truly there and you truly created me, then what is it that you want me to do with my life? When I was in New York City, actually, I worked at a startup, and the life there was really good. We already had work from home. I had unlimited paid time off, and we go for these events which are very extravagant, where people would really serve nice food and all that on the platter and everything. But yet, I realized they weren't things that last. And when I was there was this book by C.S. Lewis, and then this quote that really struck me. He says that it would seem that God does not find our desires too strong, but in fact too weak. We are half-hearted creatures fooling around with drink, with sex, with money, that when infinite joy is offered to us, we are like the child who would rather play in the mud bath because we cannot imagine what it means to be on a holiday cruise at sea. We are far too easily pleased. That for me was really the turning point, because it was at that moment where I felt I was comfortable. I had everything I needed except probably just have my family fly over, and I asked myself, is this really what the Lord wants of me? And so I think that was something that made me say that, right. And I think the next step for me was, as I returned to Singapore, I began that journey towards the seminary. But then somewhere along the journey, there was a tugging from the Lord saying that, maybe this is not where I'm calling you to be. To be very honest, I think that was even more difficult than entering the seminary. There was many questions of like, did I make a mistake? Did I discern wrongly? Did I do something wrong? Then now the Lord is punishing me. The seminary fathers were very kind. They allowed me to have this sabbatical journey to discern further, really, whether this is where the Lord is calling me. And so during that sabbatical period, that's where the whole digital church thing started as well, and then joined that for a bit. And as I was working, as I was doing the work, and also seeing that state of life, right, being a lay worker, I felt like God was really using my gifts, my talents, even what I have experienced in the seminary, right, my very little understanding of the situation with even the clergy, the challenges that they face. I saw God using every part of me for the work, right, and I think that's where it has led me today, right? But I think what's important is to do what the Lord asks of you, and that sometimes in our human understanding and terms may not necessarily be what we think is the greatest impact. Sometimes it's just really a simple thing that the Lord asks of you, and only God can really see that grand picture, the entire scheme of things. So really, it is like open hands. It is like an empty cup which you allow the Lord to fill. And once it is filled up, you need to share it. Otherwise, the water maybe it goes stale, but when you share it, it is living water that flows through everybody, right? From the Lord to yourself, to others as well. Your whole life is a blessing to the world. The question is just whether or not you want to allow that to happen. And every day the Lord invites us to that.